Yoctosecond 500 yoctoseconds until I kill everybody in South Florida because that would be so funny. Dr. Pepper, zero sugar, because I'm gonna throw rocks at people. Copyright target. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Never really caught
I'm in the air and I can't land. I'm working on the rich clarinet. Go to bed full of dread stress. Like I was dead, I would drop dead. Taking L's in the water like lotion. I wish I got my money moving with emotion. But now I'm fumbling, stumbling, crumbling, dumbling a sponge in the crab that pulls my puppet strings. Oh, why did I think my life would turn out any better? I wish I had a little refresher, but I get rain on my parade, bad weather. Oh, why did I think that I would turn out any different? I guess my life's a game I'm not winning. Oh, mother, be forgiving. Wake up in the morning and I feel so sad, cause I got to go to the Krusty Krab on the register, working for a third of my day. But I don't make fares and I don't get paid. Right back to the crib and I'm all alone. Yeah, I thought I'd make it big, but I'm lost in space. I really thought I'd make it big, but it's just another day for squid. Wish that I could just quit, go hide in my house like a lone squid, wishing for the day that I get noticed. Yow in the blow up like an explosive. Hey, I don't care about nobody's business, but every single day I wanna go ballistic. On my knees sick when I wanna be big, like a sponge head statue, monolithic. I wanna be a star, no Patrick. I wanna be the man with some fans in the stands and the grandest arenas contracted. Whenever Squiddy on the stage, he's tracked down, making waves. I'm the real big one. Crabs King, come and catch hands with me, son. Being better than a Squiddy is a fantasy, son. Just me, I don't need me a sponge. I wake up in the morning and I feel so sad, cause I got to go to the Krusty Krab on a register, working for a third of my day. But I don't make fans and I don't get paid. Fly back to the crib and I'm all alone. Yeah, I thought I'd make it big, but I'm lost in space. I really thought I'd make it big, but it's just another day for Squid.
Day that I get noticed, girl, when I'm rolling closer. I don't care about nobody's business, but every single day I wanna go ballistic. I wanna be sick, like I wanna be big, like a stone kind of statue on no lipstick. I wanna be a star, no Patrick.
Give me 5 more minutes, I don't wanna wake up. I'm so lost and I think that I'm snuffed before I even top fire. My recital's done. Got a job that I hate, but that's old news. In a mirror, I wish I didn't know you. Now I'm stuck inside a void I can't go through. Never ending real dark night, I'm a cold brew. I haven't stepped outside like all day. I get burned by everybody trying to get in my space with all the glaze. Say what you wanna say. Nowadays it feels more like pepper spray. Can wash it all away. Is this really what I wanted to be? I exiled myself for people looking for me. They say where's a new album, where the songs and beats? Well, did you ever really think that I just wanted to leave? So let me be alone. I'm done with the people screaming over. I'm weak and cold. I laugh back at my life, what an evil joke. I'm sleeping through every single alarm, cause I don't wanna wake my spirits broke. Let me be, let me be, let me be alone. Let me be, let me be, let me be alone. But with a shivering silence reaching deep inside the very life I'm living. No friends, only boss and heathens terrorize me. Could I be sleeping deep down in the deep ground, in the sand field, buried alive? I shriek out, anxiety pounds through my veins, and I've lost the plot of this game. Now I'm really going insane. Behind a bedroom door, catch me reeling from a breakdown. Can't control the pace in my way now. Going for an all-time spiral. Burn the frames and the music I wrote. Burn it all cause I wanna start over. Never good enough to be great. I'm sobered up, I'm so disgusted. Hey, can you hear the lost applause in these doldrums? But if I gotta be honest, wait, I've stacked all that I've got is my boss and pay. And all gone are the thoughts that I've gotta take. To pull right by the horns and go on the late. And sunspots on my arms burn the calm away. The burn hurts, but I've got a bite gone today. And I've got a sour taste like lemonade. And now all that I wanna say is, so let me be alone. I'm done with the people screaming over. I'm weak and cold. I laugh back on my life, what an evil joke. I'm sleeping through every single alarm, cause I don't wanna wake my spirits broke. Let me be, let me be, let me be. Was it really worth it? Blessings and the curses, never-ending nervous. Why do I feel worthless? Was it really worth it? Spires in the church, I pray to someone higher up. My wishes could be heard, yes. Was it really worth it? Blessings and the curses, never-ending nervous. Why do I feel worthless? Was it really worth it? Spires in the church, I
sure what I'm doing. I don't know anywhere to try. I'll play later at night.
Motherfuckers know what time it is. I don't even know why I'm on this track. Y'all niggas ain't even on my level. I'ma let my little homies ride a bitch made ass man. Get out the way, yo. Get out the way, yo.
Every single one of you guys don't wait.
Yeah.
Let me be.
Here. Maybe that. Yeah.
Wake up in the morning and I feel so sad, cause I got to go to the Krusty Krab on the register, working for a third of my day. But I don't make fans and I don't get paid. Right back to the crib and I'm all alone. Yeah, I thought I'd make it big, but I'm lost in space. I really thought I'd make it big, but it's just another day for a squid. Got neighbors who I can't stand. I'm in the air and I can't land. I'm working on the red clarinet, go to bed full of dread, stress like I wish that I would drop dead. Taking owls in the water like lotion. I wish I got my money moving with emotion. But now I'm fumbling, stumbling, crumbling, dumbling a sponge in the crab and pull my puppet strings. Dumbling a sponge in the crab and pull my puppet strings. Oh, why did I think my life would turn out any better? I wish I had a little refresher, but I get rain on my parade, bad weather. Oh, why did I think that I would turn out any different? I guess my life's a game I'm not winning. Oh, mother, be forgiving. Wish that I could just quit, go hide in my house like a lone squid, wishing for the day that I get noticed. Y'all wanna blow up like an explosive. Hey, I don't care about nobody's business, but every single day I wanna go ballistic. On my knees sit when I wanna be big, like a sponge and statue, monolithic. I wanna be a star, no Patrick. I wanna be the man with some fans in the stands and the grandest arenas contracted. When every squiddy on the stage he's cracked down, making waves, I'm the real big one. Raps can come and catch hands with me, son. Being better than the squiddy is a fantasy, son. Just me, I don't need me a sponge. Wake up in the morning and I feel so sad, cause I got to go to the Krusty Krab on the register, working for a third of my day. But I don't make fans and I don't get paid. Right back to the crib and I'm all alone. Yeah, I thought I'd make it big, but I'm lost in space. I really thought I'd make it big, but it's just another day for a squid.
Should I?
Welcome to the new generation of web creation.
I should. Don't breathe. Motive. I won, yeah. Here. Mm,
Genesis, chapter 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness He called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. And the evening and the morning were the second day. And God said, "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called them seas. And God saw that it was good. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, and the seed is in itself upon the earth." And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit whose seed is in itself after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning
How do I get up there?
And God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven, to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days, and years, and let them be for
What did I do?
lights in the firmament of the heaven, to give light upon the earth." And it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the fourth day. And God
Is this
said,
island level impossible?
"Let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth, and the open firmament of heaven."
How's
And
it
God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let the fowl multiply in the earth." And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle, and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after his kind, was so. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that lived upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And God blessed them. And God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in the which is the fruit of a tree-yielding seed. To you shall be for meat, and to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. The book of Genesis, chapter 2. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day, and sanctified it, because that in it he rested from all his work which God created and made. These are the generations of the heavens and of the earth, when they were created, in the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens, and every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew. For the Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth,
I'm going to
there
kill
was not a
everything in New
man
Jersey.
to till the ground.
Yes, that means
But
he
there
has
went up a mist from the earth, and watered the whole face of the ground. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And man became a living soul. And the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground made the Lord God to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight, and good for food, the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted, and it came into four heads. The name of the first is Pison, that is it which compasseth the whole land of Babylon, where there is gold, and the gold of that land is good. There is bdellium and the onyx stone. And the name of the second river is Gihon, the same is it that compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia. And the name of the third river is Hiddekar, that is it which goeth toward the east of Assyria. And the fourth river is Euphrates. And the Lord God took the man, and put him into the garden of Eden, to dress it and to keep it. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it. For in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. And the Lord God said, it is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him an help, meet for him. And out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field, and every fowl of the air, and brought them unto Adam, to see what he would call them. And whatsoever Adam called every living creature, that was the name thereof. And Adam gave names to all cattle, and to the fowl of the air, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found an help meet for him. And the Lord God caused a deep and brought her unto the man. And Adam said, This is now bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. The book of Genesis, chapter 3. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, Ye may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took up the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. And the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together, and made themselves aprons. And they heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves in the presence of the Lord God amongst the trees of the garden. And the Lord God called unto Adam, and said unto him, Where art thou? And he said, I heard thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid, because I was naked, and I hid myself. And he said, Who told thee that thou wast naked? Hast thou eaten of the tree whereof I commanded thee that thou shouldest not eat? And the man said, The woman whom thou gavest to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I did eat. And the Lord God said unto the woman, What is this that thou hast done? And the woman said, The serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. And the Lord God said unto the serpent, Because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. And unto Adam he said, Because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree, which I commanded thee, saying, Thou shalt not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for thy sake. In sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, till thou return unto the ground, for out of it wast thou taken. Dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return. And Adam called his wife's name Eve, because she was the mother of all living. Unto Adam also and his wife did the Lord God make coats of skins, and clothe them. And the Lord God said, Behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now, lest he put forth his hand, and take also of the tree of life, and eat, and live forever. Therefore the Lord God sent him forth from the garden of Eden, to till the ground from whence he was taken. So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the garden of Eden cherubims, and a flaming sword which turned every way, to keep said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. And she again bare his brother Abel. And Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. And in process of time it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord. And Abel he also brought of the firstling of his flock and of the fat thereof. And the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering, but unto Cain and to his offering he had not respect. And Cain was very wroth, his countenance fell. And the Lord said unto Cain, Why art thou wroth? And why is thy countenance fallen? If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. And unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. And Cain talked with Abel's brother, and it came to pass, when they were in the field, that Cain rose up against Abel his brother, and slew him. And the Lord said unto Cain, Where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? And he said, What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground. And now art thou cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee the strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth. And Cain said unto the Lord, My punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid. And I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass, that everyone that findeth me shall slay me. And the Lord said unto him, Therefore whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord, and dwelt in the land of God, in the east of Eden. Cain knew his wife, and she conceived, and bare Enoch. And he builded a city, and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. And unto Enoch was born Irad, and Irad begat Mehujael, and Mehujael begat Methuselah, and Methuselah begat Lamech. And Lamech took unto him 2 wives. The name of the one was Ada, and the name of the other Zillah. And Ada bare Jabal. He was the father of such as dwell in tents, and of such as have cattle. And his brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all such as handle the harp and organ. And Zillah she also bare Tubal-Cain, an instructor of every artificer in brass and iron. And the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. And Lamech said unto his wives, Ada and Zillah, Hear my voice, and the wives of Lamech, hearken unto my speech. For I have slain a man to my wounding, and a young man to my hurt. And Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, truly Lamech 70 and sevenfold. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bare a son, and called his name Seth. For God, said she, hath appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew. And to Seth, to him also there was born a son, and he called his name Enos. Then began men to call upon the name of the Lord.
Like I should probably mention that by July the 4th, and remember the attack happened on May the 13th, the United States had completely eradicated deafness, with the mention in the description that people who were already deaf beforehand and didn't want to have the implants in were harassed, and some even ran out of the country. So I'm going to go ahead and say this now, and as with all of this stuff, I'll qualify to make more sense later. But Dean is evil. This is getting a bit into the end analysis, but after just telling you all that, I feel like it'd be easier to digest now rather than later. So a group of supposed terrorists somehow hack into the entire nation's siren supply at once, and managed to make them go so loud that people literally die from it. And then that is used, like within the week, to shuttle hundreds of thousands of people to these monuments, which, as we heard in May's Movie Maker, need to be fed or they get really, really mad. So now they're overfed with all these people. The people who come back out of them seem to be similar to Virginia and her friends from the Rockefeller tree, in that they've changed their body and personality. Again, we'll look more at the details of that later, but for now, the same thing that was happening to them is happening to these people. And then the next day, after the sirens were hijacked, they magically worked just fine, enough for Dean to deliver his address. And then the death list itself is used as an excuse for the Department of Technology people and May's to become a secret agent, which, as we saw again in the May's Movie Maker video from May's is up to some very shady stuff, in which creatures are fed, or at the very least used to be fed and no one knows about them. And like, a lot of people who I saw talking about the Monument Mythos and stuff would say something along the lines of like, yeah, Dean may be a little kooky, but he hasn't really done anything yet. Like, oh my word, yes he has. Honestly, I'm with the Anti-Dean Association, and I think that they're being completely framed. I don't think they're responsible for any of that stuff's going on. I think Dean's doing it as a false flag operation. I think that this is just Operation Northwood in alternate history form. And remember at the beginning where I said I'm not going to try to sound like a conspiracy theorist, and now I've brought up Operation Northwood, so we're just going to move on. Our next video is titled Starry Springs, and opens with a video titled TFMD Mall. So remember, TFMDs are in reference to three forces of mass destruction. In it, you can see a sphinx in the distance moving on the planet Mars. We then get audio that it says is an interview that was recovered from an arson scene. The audio is an interview with Leonard Moreland. If you'll remember, he was the senior advisor that was also mentioned in Lincoln. Moreland says that the country of Egypt was against the American excavation. We don't really know what that is yet, but we will in a second. In our second video, titled TFMD Leaves Mars, we can see the previous figure of the Sphinx floating off in space. We then cut back to the interview, where it says that the pyramids themselves are TFMDs, and at the time, humanity was correct. There's also the mention Moreland gives that this is before the Dean administration classified humanity and climate change as TFMDs. That's further fuel to my fire being awful, by the way. He classified humanity as TFMDs, and I'm not really sure what the implications of that are, but we then see video numbers 3 and 4, which says TFMD enters atmosphere. Again, you can see the space entering the atmosphere. And then cuts back to the interview, and we hear that the Pharaoh had appointed guardians to cut the trees. However, they knew that they could never cut them down. They could only damage them, which would divert its energy towards repairs instead of growth. In the meantime, the Pharaoh used to build towers around them as a means of containing. So here's another mention of those specialties. And these people in ancient Egypt could not cut them down, similar to how Rockefeller could not cut down that specialty. However, for whatever reason that we're not entirely sure of yet, ancient Egyptians did not want these trees to grow. Then a video titled takes us to the TFMD effect, in which these sort of orbs are seen being shot down to the ground. We then cut back to the interview that says that the pyramids go down infinitely and they were made to contain the trees. So ancient Egyptians, the pharaohs became these people known as guardians. It's also mentioned that they would take these substances as a means of keeping their bodies from tiring out, while they would spend all day damaging cutting the trees, never able to cut it down, just slow it. And that the pyramids were built solely for the purpose of containing these trees. However, the pyramids go down infinitely, and after several weeks of digging, the Americans who were trying to dig them up for some reason realized that this was into it. Then in video number 7, we see TFMD's false children man, in which we see these orbs cut down and touch the corners of the skin before a giant light flash. This light flash is similar to the electric strikes of lightning previously. We then see video number 8 says false children organized into the Starry Sphinx. And sure enough, those false children or glowing orbs that we saw are now in the shape of the Sphinx itself. It then says again for video number 8, distracts observers as the mothership flees. To which we look over and see that the real Sphinx is this giant ship or on top of a giant ship and is floating by. And then for video number 9 says the Great Pyramids rise, to which the Great Pyramids rise. Then for video number 10, it says the other pyramids awaken, to which we can see what looks like the Washington Monument, as several of it are all around, or at the very least several of these special trees are all around. We then get a diagram titled Present Situation, to which it shows us that there is one Sphinx and countless pyramids all around, with the final message that this was produced by the Anti-Device Association. So, again, basically, according to the interview, whatever this supernatural or cosmic phenomenon is, it's been going on for a really long time. The Pharaoh himself was having workers roll down the trees and then contain them with these infinite pyramids. However, with whatever's happening now, with these false children or orbs coming to Earth, the pyramids are beginning to rise. I know you're probably tired of hearing this at this point, but it'll make more sense with more context, so it's best if I just keep talking. I do also want to add, though, that in the description it says that Maze says there are no extraterrestrials. Now, in the description of nearly every video, it says that whatever message we're getting is from Maze, so I don't know if that is Alex telling us it's not aliens, even though it looks like aliens, or if that's Maze trying to subvert us from the fact that it definitely is aliens. If it's not aliens, then possibly the Sphinx went to Mars some time ago as a means of just being in wait before it was reactivated by whatever these pyramids are doing. I don't know, but for reasons that I'll mention near the end, and of all the topics in this entire series, the whole pyramid orb, Sphinx, false children thing is probably the one that we have the least information on right now. But I will say that I feel the Sphinx are the good guys, or at least not as evil as I think the special trees are. I'll explain why in the analysis part, but for now, that whole diagram where we see that there's one Sphinx and a lot of pyramids, or in other words, things made to cover the trees, that's a bad thing. Because if the Sphinx is one way, at least according to my theory, that trees can be countered, one of them for like the countless number of pyramids everywhere, and pyramids include things like the DC Monument and the various actual pyramids and all of that. Only having one Sphinx to deal with all those, not good. Giza Guardian begins with a message saying that, weather permitting, on July 4th there will be a live broadcast of the Starry Sphinx in Giza. Also, this message is presented by the Maze News Network, so it looks like the Super Tech Corporation got into the media too. Glad that doesn't happen in real life. And sure enough, during the newsfeed, we see the aforementioned false children arranged in the shape of the Sphinx itself, walking through the desert. We watch as these green orbs dance around and then transform into these ladders before they all become these rows of rings and then lightning strikes. We then see a presentation from somebody called Dr. Disturbing called Project Giza Guardian. Dr. Disturbing is also the person who did the presentation on the Suez Canal crab. I'll talk about who he may be at the end. In Project Giza Guardian, we are told of the story of Giza Glass. For thousands of years, the locals in Egypt knew that whenever a specific constellation arrives, lightning would strike the ground and create this rare material known as Giza Glass. That is until 1870, when a Briton Egyptologist known as Flinders Petrie discovered the constellation and how to get to the glass first. The glass itself was made in these long shards and fragments and was incredibly sharp. So sharp, in fact, that while Petrie was moving some of it, he fell and decapitated himself on the glass. However, the most miraculous fact is that his head was still alive. However, as it was alive, it began to swell and discolor before the story of Petrie ends. It says that whenever the glass got back to England, the group of it known as Petrie's Lot, it was deemed unusable because of the small fragments that it was broken into. However, the British began to give it out to American ambassadors. However, eventually, whenever Rockefeller was president, he decided to gather up all the glass together because he recognized special properties of it. Eventually, it was decided that the glass would be made into long blades and given to Greco-Egyptian swordsmen. These swordsmen were very tall, stone-like figures who were given Giza glass blades and set to guard the Grand Canyon. Anyone who was attacked by these swordsmen would be decapitated. However, there was a special vinegar concoction that could reduce the swelling side effects, and allow the heads to return to their normal size and be placed back onto their body. If you're like me, this is really exciting because it connects a lot of dots, but we'll get there in a second. Victims of these swordsmen were given housing within the Grand Canyon itself, as well as a lifetime supply of this vinegar concoction, on the condition that they would lure enemies of state into the Grand Canyon to meet the same fate as themselves. The government claims that the Giza Guardian program was shut down in 1969 during the Dean presidency. However, sightings still occur to this day. We then completely changed gears and switched to an interview of the wife of Thomas Crawford. If you'll remember, Thomas Crawford was the designer and sculptor of the Statue of Freedom. During the interview, his wife Louisa says that Thomas absolutely hated America and originally had the statue designed to show the form of a freed slave, but whenever America told him to get rid of that design aspect, he became furious. During his design, Thomas went to Egypt to get Giza glass to construct the sword of the statue. The reason I mentioned him being mad about America not letting him use the freed slave design is because Louisa goes on to say that perhaps he went and got the Giza glass just because he was an honorable man who wanted to finish the job, but I feel like there may have been some malice to it. As he was working on the sword, he cut off his fingertip. However, after cutting it off, he could still feel and control it. Eventually, he did the same thing with his hand, and whenever he came home to her, said that he could still feel his hand all the way back at the workshop. It was shortly after this that Thomas left for several days, and whenever Louisa came to look for him, she found him completely inside of the mouth of Freedom. She says that it wasn't that Freedom came alive and did it to him, it's that he willingly cut up pieces of himself and shoved it inside of the statue. Hence her statement earlier that Nina said, in which Louisa said it has his eyes. Louisa then confirms that the remains found next to Freedom within the cave were that of her daughter Nina. Louisa then ends by saying that Thomas and Nina are still alive and inside of the statue, protecting America to this day. So for one, that's why earlier I was so sure to say that the body in the cave was Nina's, because it's confirmed here. But also this asks questions of who's controlling it. If Thomas initially did the voluntary movements of putting his body parts inside of the statue, then is he the one controlling it? Or is the statue itself alive and closely related to the other Giza Guardians that have been spoken about in this episode already? We then shift gears again and get a report that says the Delaware River Journal has shut down because of the George Washington story, and that the new Delaware Journal has taken its place. Remember the part I mentioned early on in this video, how George Washington's alive? Well, that was enough of a no-no that the state shut them down for it. The new Delaware Journal tells the story of how the Anti-Dean Association stormed the Capitol and attacked the Statue of Freedom. The official claim from politicians is that the person who installed the statue did a faulty job at it, and that's the reason it fell and killed 150 people. Interestingly, the person who installed it was Philip Reed. The person who, if you'll remember from the Freedom Fowler story, is the one who peeled the skin off of the Statue of Freedom. Also, very bizarrely, it says that Philip Reed has recently become a demonized character by the Anti-Dean Association. So if I'm right and the Anti-Dean Association is cool, then maybe they understand that Philip Reed skinning the statue was probably a bad move. Or at least skinning the statue and then putting it on the Capitol building would be a bad move. But it's just an interesting detail that he is a figure they're looking down on historically. Sure enough, it says that Freedom is now being placed in the Grand Canyon. To which, when President Dean was asked why he did it, Dean said, "The rocks won't shoot her down." Which, haha, funny joke. But also, that means that Freedom is now where all of the other Giza Guardians are. And as we're going to see later, she definitely wasn't the first. So regardless if Freedom is Thomas controlling the statue, or if Freedom is one of these Giza Guardians who simply lure Thomas into her in the cleanest way possible, then it doesn't matter because now she's in the Grand Canyon doing the same things that the other Guardians are doing. We then see that a journalist for the New Delaware Journal leaked a government file and has since been exiled to Egypt. That journalist was Howard Melrose. If you'll remember Howard Melrose, he was the guy from Lincoln Looker who helped the bystanders break open the Lincoln statue, and then whatever that thing was came out of the top of it. And I didn't mention it because there was a lot going on and I didn't want to further confuse everyone, but he was the reporter who gave a report at the site of the Suez Canal incident. Or more specifically, the part afterwards where all the bodies were jumbled together, and he was the one who said everyone was just one pile of flesh. That lines up with what we read here, that he was exiled to Egypt. So it seems that what happened to Howard is he was just an innocent bystander who witnessed the really weird event of the Lincoln Looker, or whatever was inside of Lincoln, coming out of the statue, so he decided to become a journalist and figure out what the government was up to. He leaked this file and has since been in hiding in Egypt, and while he was in Egypt, gave that report. In the leak, we see a description of how to handle Anti-Dean Association members. We see a map of the Grand Canyon with the Statue of Freedom moving through it, attacking people who are trespassing. Freedom goes by each person, cutting off their heads, which we understand to be the Guardian's MO, until they get to the last one, and sure enough, the name is Maya Arnoldson. We then cut to a tape called The Last Words of Maya Arnoldson, and in the audio, we can hear her walking before she's afraid of something, tries to run away before she's promptly killed, and her body falls down a ravine. It then says her body was found in the Grand Canyon in 2004, and her head was still missing. Okay, so this episode probably connected a lot of dots for you, or at the very least it did for me. So the government, or Maze, or whatever body of people, are hiding something in the Grand Canyon. They get these ancient warriors, known as the Guardians, who are using this special material called Giza glass to be the Guardians for whatever secret they have. After it was discovered that Freedom was one of these Guardians, or at least close enough, she was also sent to the Grand Canyon. Maya, who we know has spent her entire life trying to out these evils, or at least out Maze for their evils, goes looking for whatever the secret is in the Grand Canyon, and she's killed by a Guardian. So, as we understand Giza glass to work, her head swells up to this giant size to which she has to take the vinegar stuff in order to get it to shrink. It's not understood how much of her brain capacity transfers from human to meatball crown things, but probably not the best. So she's essentially one of these mindless crowns, who the only purpose she has is to lure other dissenters into the Grand Canyon, and this explains why in Canyon Crown, Lauren's dad took her to find his sister, Maya, in the Grand Canyon. And why whenever Lauren saw the big meatball thing, she says, I think that was Maya. And we get further confirmation of that in the next video. Fallen Father opens with the return of the most important character in the entire series. That's right, Mr. Squirrel. The video is back in the traditional Maze Movie Maker style, and then from the text that we see on screen, we can deduce that this is Lauren, the daughter of Nathaniel. However, in the text, we see that Lauren's father has passed away, with the description that he left saying he's going home, and then never came back. However, she mentions that something follows home, and then runs inside before, as she's hiding, this giant shadow appears over the window. This is all while text is being displayed on the screen, saying that she won't forget her father and that it's been 3 days. Finally, it ends with the message Nathaniel Arnoldson, July of 1961 to May of 2021. So Nathaniel has passed away for some reason, and now Lauren is making this video. However, as she mentioned something from the Grand Canyon following home, and sure enough, there is a giant shadow that appears over the window from above, implying that it's floating down. This is more than likely Aunt Maya following her home from the Grand Canyon. To me, this implies that she at least kept some of her brain function, or enough to recognize that that was her niece. And while her communication skills may not be present, it seems that she's trying to reach out to Lauren. And continuing the trend of tying up loose ends and making more things make sense, we have Rockefeller Revelation. Rockefeller Revelation opens up with the same movie maker style as before, saying that their dad has been dead for 3 months and now they're going to continue his work, before it says Dr. Disturbing presents. This is now the third video in Season 2 made by Dr. Disturbing, and the fact the only passed away father that we know of is Nathaniel, and the fact that it opens in the Movie Maker font we're used to, I'm going to safely make the assumption that Dr. Disturbing is one of Nathaniel's kids. Now, since it sounds like a guy's voice doing the narration for the Dr. Disturbing parts, I'm going to say, and this also looks better on a timeline and graph, that Lauren's brother is Dr. Disturbing. Now, Dr. Disturbing could also be an alias for the two of them together, and her brother just does the narration parts. In fact, that's more than likely what it is, considering the movie maker style we see Lauren using is the one that transfers into the Dr. Disturbing style. However, he doesn't have a name, and he's at least doing the narration, so I'm just going to call him Lauren and Dr. D. And from Dr. D, we see something called the Rockefeller Tapes, Part 7. In the story, we hear an interview from John D. Rockefeller and the time that he visited Germany, and they named their airships after him. Now, I've got an entire chart up there that you can probably see the corner of right now that I'm going to use to explain the whole timeline of everything, but for now, I will mention that from my maths that I put together, that John D. Rockefeller was president beginning in 1909, which would have been before World War I. So it seems this description that he's giving is pre-World War I, or in other words, the ships that you're going to figure out he built right here in a second were used during the Great War. We're then given a diagram of these airships where everything looks fine at first, until we see the interior, and that pretty much the entire inside is a giant face with whatever this growth is behind it. Rockefeller explains that due to his setup of having guardians turn people into crowns within the Grand Canyon, that there was an overabundance of crowns. At the same time, America was risking going into a Great Depression, so he decided that the best thing to do was sell the crowns as slaves to Germany. Or essentially, crowns can't fight back and don't have the capacity to know what they're doing, so you can just give them to the Germans to use for their war machine. We then see a design for an anti-airship death ray, and after looking over the schematics for it, all seems well, until we see the inside of it, and there's whatever this fanged tooth thing is that seems to be the power. Not only that, but at another part of the diagram, there is a lamp mentioned, implying that these are in some form beings of light or energy. Further in Rockefeller's interview, he explains that the American economy was dying and Germany wanted to use these crowns as weapons. So Rockefeller sold over 100 of these crowns to Germany, who then put them in their airships and named the airships Rockefellers in his honor. Germany did help the American economy. However, as Rockefeller says, by 1918, thousands of people had been killed by Rockefeller ship bombings. And Rockefeller's presidency ended before he could respond to the German attack. So Rockefeller, who we established a couple episodes ago, gathered all of the beads of glass in order to make these swords that the Guardians then used to make crowns, took those crowns and began selling them as weapons to people who eventually became enemies of the United States. It's never expressly said what the crowns do. I mean, initially I thought, giant meatball heads running through the battlefield are probably a pretty effective psychological weapon, if nothing else. However, these things are inside of blimps, and he says used to bomb people. So maybe they can release some kind of energy bomb or something similar. The first thing that comes to mind is the orbs that were seen at the beginning of He's a Guardian, not He's a Guardian, in Starry's Phoenix that come out of the plane and sort of blow up. Maybe the crowns can do that, I don't know, but they were effective as a weapon for some reason. We then see a diagram of something called Operation Pyramid Plasma, which shows several men bringing one of the aforementioned anti-airship death rays to the top of the pyramid. It then shoots down the airship, showing that whatever this death ray is, it seems to work against the crowns inside of the airship. In the final part of Rockefeller's interview, he says that the American public has now figured out that he had a hand in the Germans bombing an airship program and essentially want him dead. We then cut back to the operation, where it shows us that after this death ray was fired, the energy disintegrated the men standing near the death ray. Eventually, after wandering through the desert, all of them reform as one entity before traveling back to their homeland, aka the United States, and getting retaliation or vengeance on the person that caused this. We then see that on May 23rd of 1937, Rockefeller entered a bunker underneath the plaza and was never seen again. However, there is a note that the door was melted by a massive heat ray. And then to make it even more interesting, it says that there has only ever been 2 images of the suspect, which the 2 images we see are the first Christmas before Rockefeller found the special tree, and the very first picture ever taken of the special tree in 1840. Okay, so that happened. So we got all the stuff about Rockefeller, was selling crowns to the Germans, funded the German war machine, etc. But the cool part, at least the coolest part to me, is all these soldiers who were standing near the death ring got atomized and then reformed as one creature that somehow managed to travel all the way across the ocean and then immediately get revenge on Rockefeller. That whole never seen again thing is because that guy got blasted into, like, neutrons. That mention of the bunker door was melted open is because this amalgamation of 20 fried atom people all showed up once like Dr. Manhattan and just, like, took his door off his hinges and made him non-existent. I am referring to this creature as the Avogadro. And yes, I'm referring to it as that because of the Electric Man from Black Ops 2 Zombies. It's my channel, I can do what I want. So this Avogadro gets revenge on the person who created the crowns within the Zeppelins, and also most likely the death ray itself. Also, the two pictures that it appears in are also very interesting, because the one of the plaza is 1933 or 1934, and the one of the special tree is 1840. So this creature is not only able to travel across the oceans or possibly teleport, it's also a time traveler. And he's very upset at the people who killed him, rightfully so. And I'm going to continue referring to him as the Avogadro. So there's an electric man that has the power to melt bunker doors and turn people to ash running around. I also want to remind you this is the same series where a living statue that skins people and George Washington are also running around, and James Dean's the president. This is the best. I love this. We have now reached what is, to date, the final episode of the series, although there will be more, Washington Wonderland. I also want to go ahead and preface that this one ties up a lot of loose ends and starts a whole lot of other ones, so par for the course. The video opens with a message that after an unsuccessful lobotomy, Virginia Arnoldson better recounts the story of the Rockefeller Tree tragedy. So there's Virginia again, the little girl who hasn't been mentioned since the Rockefeller Tree tragedy and how she went to Wonderland. And something that may have not meant a lot then, but definitely does now, is that last name, Virginia Arnoldson. Somehow Virginia is related to Maya and Nathaniel, and this series goes from just being the telling of a few people in this weird world to one connective story of a family. Virginia says that after the events of Rockefeller Tree tragedy, she was left at an orphanage along with several others who all of their parents believed them to be doppelgangers. However, when they got older, the military took all the boys and the doctors took all of the girls, leaving Virginia by herself. She then begins to describe in better detail what happened to her in Wonderland. Initially, she was laying there on the ground, and she looked around and saw the aforementioned forest of special trees. However, when she looked up, she realized that the tree mirrored itself, or in other words, at the top of the tree, there was another tree directly above it that was facing the opposite direction, so the tops of both trees were touching. Then above that one was another tree flipped the right direction, so that the two stumps of it were touching. This continued on and on forever. The best way to describe this is whenever you place two mirrors across from each other and see an infinite reflection with each other reflection looking the same way. She looked beneath her and saw the exact same scenario. As a matter of fact, the ground she was on wasn't even ground, but a thin layer of powder that smelled like baby powder. All around her were flashes of light, and out of these flashes of light, men came running from every direction. One of these men came out of a flash of light and told her that the trees aren't trees. Before saying the line, "You could be her. Anyone could be her. I won't leave you." Suddenly another flash comes and the two of them appear in a field. Then another flash and they're somewhere else. Every few seconds another flash takes place that they can't control, and every time that they flash to somewhere they're doing something else. Virginia describes that this went on for years and years. Initially she was sad, then she became angry, and eventually just tired, like the man with her. She decided to name this man Everett. And Everett never left her side. It's never even said if the two of them ever had a real conversation or were just stuck in this infinite loop of flashing from place to place, but it seems Virginia just cherished having someone there. Also, during these flashes, they would switch from one of the layers to another. In other words, one flash, they could be standing at the layer Virginia began at, and then be one stage above them, then another stage above, and then back down again. Also, there were several people, referred to as climbers, who were stretched out and scorched along the side of trees. Virginia believed that if someone had tried to climb up a tree whenever they were flashed, this is what would happen to them. This went on for years until one day, all of the trees bent over at once and there was a great flash and she woke up back in New York in the plaza with her friends. This is the scene that Virginia woke up to in the original Rockefeller tree tragedy. She says that when she turned 18, she left the orphanage and her dad was dead and her mom was so paranoid because of the events that happened. Eventually, Virginia, fed up with her life and deciding that she's an imposter in this world, decides to go back to the plaza to find some answers. When she gets there, she sees the special tree standing at the top of a building at the plaza. This, mind you, is very similar to John Rockefeller Jr.'s account, saying that he still sees the tree in the plaza and it looks like a man. Virginia speaks to the tree, and the tree tells her to come back in 3 years and she'll have to exchange one life for her own. This message of coming back in 3 years loops 3 times over. I'm not going to go into the details of it right now, but for now let's just assume that it's been 9 years since Virginia initially approached the tree. She says during these 9 years she met a secret agent who was a very important man who eventually approached her and said that he was assigned to protect her. She says that the man's name was Leonard. She had never loved anyone before and no one would ever have her, so she felt welcome in his presence and the two of them had a son together. The son was never born, but she decided to name him Everett after the man she met in Wonderland. After the end of this 9 years, and with her very pregnant with her son Everett, Virginia goes back to the tree who gives her directions. After walking for 4 days, she hears the music and comes across the Washington Monument. After stepping into the monument, she sees that there are bodies everywhere. However, the music is so calming that she doesn't seem to mind. She gets into the elevator that was mentioned in the Washington Standard operation, and once she's risen to the top, the music paralyzes her, again something that can be seen in the operation, before the ground drops out from the elevator and she falls and hits the floor. When she hits the floor, her body stops, but she feels her soul keep going. She says she floats for what feels like 500 years before she appears back in her body. However, this body is slightly different than the one that she was in. Not only that, but she was no longer pregnant. Virginia believes that whenever the tree told her she'd have to exchange one life for her own, Virginia was ready to give up her own life, but did not realize that she had exchanged Everett's life for her own. However, just like the body that she had passed out of, this body too had just fallen from the top of the DC monument and was completely crushed, meaning she was unable to move. However, Virginia came to realize that herself, as well as everyone else within the monument, was all still alive, even though logistically they should be dead from the fall they endured. The music kept everyone paralyzed and alive, and in excruciating pain as they bled out onto the ground over the course of several years. It seems, according to her, that the tree within the monument was keeping them alive for some reason. This was until one day there was a great flash and everyone woke up outside. Whenever they woke up outside, they were in a field of those trees. Helicopters appeared and picked everyone up. The helicopter told Virginia that the year was 2003, and everything she knew had been wrong. After Virginia tells those that she came to know in her false life sorry, she then asks that whoever's reading this may remember her, before the text says that she was given a second lobotomy and never spoke again. However, she drew these artworks depicting how she wanted her life to be. It finally ends with the message that Virginia Arnoldson passed away in 1980 at the age of 59. And we are then given the message her son Everett is the 20th Washington absentee. And that is the end, at the moment, of the monument mythos. So, to try to digest everything I just read, it seems that whenever Virginia passed into Wonderland at the tree tragedy, it wasn't the quick, oh, I was in Wonderland and I was back in the closet thing. It was originally seemed to be, it to her was the course of several hundred years. And we'll get into all the theories and what it could mean and how this happened later, but she met a man named Everett who took care of her in the best way someone can, just being a companion, before she came back to the plaza, and then after many years of her life, met with the tree that sent her to the Washington Monument. Now we know the Washington Monument feeds on people that come through it. We saw this with the Civil War prisoners. We saw this with the Anti-Dean Association members who were sent to the camps that were located around monuments. We saw this with Civil War prisoners. We saw this with the Anti-Dean Association members who were sent to the temporary prisons. And then after doing the process that several others had, she left one body and wound up with another. Now, as you probably picked up from the dates mentioned at the end, it seems like there are two Virginias. Because remember, it says one died in 1980 at the age of 59, and the other one was alive and picked up by helicopters in 2003. As a matter of fact, that's not the only instance of something like that happening. Remember how Maya Arnoldson in One World showed up in a report from 1977 that got leaked that says she was killed by Freedom? However, in the other timeline, she was making movies with her brother exposing Maze after the Maze movie maker was built in the year 2000. Also, that final line, her son Everett was the 20th Washington absentee. However, it says only 19 people were recovered. And just to make everything even more confusing and far out there, this is in the description of Washington Wonderland. Everett Arnoldson, commonly referred to as the 20th Washington absentee, is a humanoid creature that is purported to inhabit the forest of the Washington Zone. Have you ever seen Everett? What? So Virginia was pregnant with Everett whenever she took the plunge and then was transported from one body to the other. This explains why in the Washington Wormhole video, it says all 19 of the absentees were recovered, specifically leaving out Everett because he was never recovered, even though he was identified in the description of that video as the 20th Washington absentee. Also, that's what I meant then by it's such a mind blow, because after I finished the series, I went back and watched Washington Wormhole, and seeing in the description and in the video that was accounted for over a year ago blew my mind. It was fantastic. But even though Everett was never recovered, despite being identified as the 20th absentee, here in the description we see that he's a humanoid creature that roams about in the forest. And I do have a theory on why that may be. Is it a good theory? Probably not. But now with that, we have finally, I have no idea what this is going to cut down into the video. I've been talking about this for 3 hours now. This is going to be a long one. But there's still 4 sections left. It's things to pull out I didn't catch till a second watch. There is the important characters. There is a linear timeline. And then there's theories about it. And also the way that I want the rest of this to be structured. If you're interested in watching the whole thing, you should probably watch this next part next. But I've got timestamps in the description for each piece. So if you hear me talk about stuff I caught on a second watch and want to go straight to theories, you can do that if you like. Or you can just watch it straightforward, however you want. But now that I have finally gotten through the description of the series itself, and there was a lot, I can get into things I noticed on the second watch. For one, the first video in the series, Liberty Lurker, which feels like forever ago at this point, says that the classified blueprints from 1949 were not released until 36 years later. 1949 plus 36 equals 1985, the year that the Liberty Lurker was first seen. So more than likely, the only reason that those blueprints ever saw the light of day was because people had questions over what the Liberty Lurker was. And you know, the giant thing started to pop out of the statue, pedestal, flesh pit, whatever. Also, looking at those designs a bit more with the knowledge we have now, more of it makes sense. So there's a line that Virginia says in Washington Wonderland. Whenever she's laying there on the ground, wondering why the tree's keeping her alive, she says, does it just want our blood? And then if you'll remember, in the schematics for the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty, there is a drain and a waste storage. And combining that with stuff like Maya says in the Movie Maker video, where she says that some places haven't been fed in years, and the fact that the immigrants on Ellis Island said the smell of a slaughterhouse was very strong, I think that these sites quite literally eat blood, and people are kept in this half-trance alive state to serve as blood banks. Hence, Virginia and the other Washington absentees just being there for years, constantly bleeding out into the floor. And it seems like if these locations are not fed, they get upset and start to electric explode like what happened to Mays in 1980. Also, and I may be jumping the gun a little bit into the theory portion, remember at the end of Liberty Lurker how you can supposedly see like the actual Liberty Lurker thing coming out of the statue? Well, in my opinion, the top of whatever's coming out of the statue looks very similar to the climbers that are shown in Washington Wonderland, or at least the trees with the climbers on it. This is, again, approaching theory territory, but I think some of the things that happen in Wonderland can be seen in our world, and perhaps if someone was a climber and becomes this burnt amalgamation on a tree, they can become these giant monstrous forms in the real world. Or at the very least, if someone is a climber on a tree in Wonderland, that tree may act up in the real world and do stuff like come out of the Statue of Liberty. Because keep in mind, whoever designed the blueprint for the Statue of Liberty had a mechanism in there with the engine, axle, and wheels for an eventual departure. So whoever designed it expected and possibly wanted whatever was in there to eventually come out. Now I also want to clarify, the series is not done and season 2 isn't even done. So whenever I bring up theory stuff, there's a solid chance that information will come out that completely shuts up anything I say about it. I'm kind of working with like half a jigsaw puzzle here. And that's not the discredit to Alex at all. He hasn't laid the whole puzzle out yet. That's the discredit to me wanting to do the video now rather than be patient and waiting because I'm an idiot. Lincoln Looker's still a tricky one to me, even on a second watch through, because the people in there weren't in any abject suffering, at least according to Maya. And also to clarify, the Maya that was in Lincoln is not our Maya. Remember how the whole mention of the Lincoln Looker is the president just decides who's going to be the Lincoln Looker and that's just how it is? Well, this Maya was put in there for 2 weeks and then they realized they got the wrong person. So more than likely, because this Maya had the same name of our Maya, they assumed it was her, threw her in there, and then realized that no, it's not her, and then they take her out. But for whatever reason, our Maya Arnoldson, who we know to be not the best friends of the United States government, they wanted her to be a Lincoln Looker. And because we know that there's someone in there, I'm going to imagine the thing that comes out at the end of it is probably a person's hand. And the closest thing that I can attribute this to is the Freedom Statue. Because the Freedom Statue is supposedly killing people and absorbing their souls or their essence or whatever. And then there's the line of graffiti that says the souls of Lincoln will be freed, I believe on Mount Rushmore. So maybe the Lincoln statue drains souls over time. Maybe it's somehow collecting essence like the Freedom Statue. Again, I don't know yet. It hasn't been elaborated on, so I'm just taking a shot in the dark. In Rushmore's Revenge, the graffiti about the blood of liberty will be avenged is a lot more literal. It makes a lot more sense with the analysis I said earlier. Also, that one line is specifically more weird the more I think about it, the whole I will introduce infection. Because we see that whatever introduces the infection makes those giant spikes all over the Rushmore head, which I'll go ahead and say now looks like special trees, and I'm pretty sure that's just a bunch of special trees. So the infection is merging elements of Wonderland into our world or the real world, something that we see later can happen. Because in Starry Sphinx, whenever it says that pyramids everywhere are rising up, that's a bunch of special trees happening everywhere. So the infection was just that at Rushmore. Also, and I may just be dumb and like overthinking this element and there's nothing there, but the light that is flashing at the top of Mount Rushmore is very similar to the light that is flashing on top of the Rockefeller Plaza at the end of Rockefeller tree tragedy. That was a mouthful. So perhaps as John Rockefeller Jr. said that the tree is alive and at the top of the plaza, that's another one of these tree people or man trees or whatever at the top of Rushmore. Also, remember how they said that the National Park Service's response to this was to pour baby powder everywhere? And Virginia also said that the thing that was separating the barriers between the different layers within Wonderland was baby powder. My theory here, and again this is edging into the theory stuff, but is that thing that everyone is calling baby powder is actually a sort of dimensional barrier. In other words, within Wonderland, the baby powder is what separates the sort of barriers between one mirrored universe to another mirrored universe. So whenever this infection comes, which turns out to be a bunch of special trees, and Wonderland crashing into the real world, the only thing the government can do is throw the barrier everywhere as a means to try to keep it out. Or essentially, baby powder is an interdimensional picket fence. The only thing I really got of the Alcatraz video on second watch was the fact that radiation again made the island go kooky all at once, which with things like the Suez Canal crab we saw is a common through line. So Air Force One Angel's really interesting. Remember how I said the infection that came everywhere was like the dimensional crossover, or the special tree showing up on Rushmore and all of that, and then that happened the same day the Air Force One Angel went over. Yeah, so that's the Angel I keep umming a lot. I've been recording a while. So I'm going to say that this infection is the Angel somehow breaking the barrier between worlds and allowing Wonderland to flow into the real world. I've also got a theory for what the Angel is, but I want to save it for the theory section, because it's one of the only ones I have that I'll actually put my foot down on. The others are just... You'll see. In the Washington wormhole, the mention of the door being very large, and that's something even Virginia pointed out in Washington Wonderland, that it seems like the door was made for something much bigger, may be similar to how the Statue of Liberty was built for the tree or whatever that was in there to eventually come out. So maybe the DC monument was also designed for something to come out of it if it needs to or if it's ready. Also, that ending of Washington wormhole where the monument bends over and lightning strikes, that would be the moment that Washington and the other absentees wake up all together, or they were unconscious, I should say, appear all together outside of the monument. Alright, so Delaware doubles really interesting on a second watch through because it makes a lot more sense than just Washington freezing in a river for 200 years. Remember how Virginia, like, went in 1948 inside of the DC monument and then fell to the floor, and then whenever she comes out she's in 2003? Well, it seems that Wonderland, or more specifically the special trees, can get real funny with time. Another example of that being the Avogadro Man, how he showed up from 1840 to when? 1934? So my theory is that the reason we got that little George Washington bit isn't just because it's hilarious, but also because Washington touched the tree or had an interaction with Wonderland and wound up in the present time. So that is an example that someone can seemingly unwillingly be teleported to a different time. So rewatching the Rockefeller tree tragedy began to shape a lot of the theories I'm going to talk about at the end for how the world works. But I'll go ahead and say this, and it's something you've probably put together at this point, that it seems there are two different timelines taking place in this world. To look at it within Wonderland, you have a tree, and then you have a mirrored tree. And then you have the original tree, and then another mirrored tree. Now, while we could do the multiverse thing and say that every single one of those is a different timeline, I, as well as many others, believe that there are two timelines taking place. You have one tree, and then you have the mirrored tree, being a representation of one timeline and the mirrored timeline. Now, obviously, that's relative to you. If you had spent your entire life on the mirrored timeline, then the normal one would look funny to you, and it would be vice versa. I believe that there are two separate timelines going on here, and what happened is that whenever Virginia touched the top of the tree, which as we understand from Wonderland is the barrier between two different timelines, that caused her to switch from hers into the adjoining one. And what was especially interesting about listening to Rockefeller Tree Tragedy again is that just like a mirror, you can't touch your reflection without your reflection also touching you. Remember that line her parents said to her when she was in the hospital bed? Whenever they said, well, did you hang your bear on the tree? And she said, no, I was going to hang a star. That means the mirrored version of her was going to hang a bear that day. So even though there's slight differences, one Virginia had freckles, the other didn't, one had slightly different parents than the other one, both Virginias were in the exact same place at the dimensional barrier at the exact same time, and whenever they touched each other, that's when they switched. That's why everything is backwards. That's why the nurses said that their x-rays were wrong. It's because Virginia switched from the A timeline to the B timeline. Also, remember those mentions that Virginia had that worried Rockefeller, where she said things like, oh, you were the famous oil tycoon, and he thought it was weird because he was the president of the United States? Well, that's because in the A timeline, he was the oil tycoon, and in the B timeline, he was the president. So it's in my opinion, as the opinion of many others who are into this series and think it's neat like I do, that the catalyst for the majority of the events that have taken place was that switch Virginia made from one to the other. And according to fans of the series, the two timelines are known as the Nixon verse and the Dean verse. The reason for that being, in the real world, or our universe, Nixon was the 37th president of the United States, and in this alternate history, James Dean was. So Virginia, originally from the Nixon verse, went over to the Dean verse, couldn't stand it because everything was a little weird, fought and fought and fought, and then eventually, whenever she did the DC Monument thing, it's in my theory that she switched back. I'm going to stop going into theory territory there, that's for later, but yeah, two timelines, pretty sure, at least that's my idea. Unless in the next video that's completely shot down, in which case, Yahtzee. Watching Canyon Crown, a lot of the stuff that was in it I'd figured out, like the whole vinegar thing makes their head smaller, that's why Lauren smells vinegar, blah blah blah. The pictures at the end do make more sense now, all the headless people hanging around, because supposedly if untreated their heads become the giant floating meatball thing, but if they take the vinegar stuff they can shrink back down and walk around. In Freedom Fowler, the whole description of the woods being flattened all the way up to the cave makes sense, because it was a Giza glass sword that was cutting the whole way up there. As we've established, the child was crushed and shoved onto the statue and rubbed on and in its body. This is all common knowledge at this point. May's Movie Maker again raises points about how these creatures or these trees or whatever they are work, because it seems like technology attracts them. That's why Maze was attacked in 1980 and why they decided to shut down all the computers. However, it seems that they're also satisfied by being fed blood. So, depending on how you look at it, and it could be different, again, we don't have all the pieces yet, Maze and the government could be more of like an SCP Foundation. Like, yeah, they're doing bad things, but the alternative is the trees sprout up everywhere and kill all of humanity. Or alternatively, like Rockefeller, they're using these cosmic supernatural stuff for its powers, which would be not good. We don't have the pieces yet. I'm gonna say they're evil until proven otherwise, mostly because I don't trust Dean. But yeah, I'm still saying they're bad for now. That could change though. Whenever Maya and Nathaniel are exploring underneath the Maze factory and they hold up the map, there is a part on it that's blurred out to the lower right section, and it looks like it's the bottom of the cave they're going to. I have absolutely no idea what this could be. They said the caves haven't been fed, so maybe that's the tree, or the roots of the tree. Maybe that's where, like, the waste storage and the bodies that are being bled for it are. I don't know. It's blurred out. What do you want me to do? That's Garfield the cat. Moving on. Also, whenever Maya mentions that they haven't been fed in a long time, all that electricity and zapping happens all at once. So that further leads into my theory that if you don't give them blood, they do the whole rise attack thing. Also, she says that they have not been fed in some time. The implication I get from that is that they were being fed at some point, and this is underneath the Maze facility. So maybe all of the, I believe, 13 Maze facilities were specifically built on top of these caves or these special trees as a means of controlling and feeding them. And for whatever reason, they haven't been fed recently. Also, this is total harebrained conspiracy, but that's what I do, apparently. So if you look at the map, it's like a sine wave across the country, and the first idea I had looking at it are ley lines, which is a thing in supernatural and paranormal communities. It's like these natural flow lines of magnetism where paranormal events happen because they're more paranormal hotspots. If you've watched The Conspiracy Iceberg, you know what I'm talking about. I only sound a little bit crazy. However, looking at that, it made me think of ley lines. So potentially the locations of the special trees align with paranormal hotspots, which would further confirm the theory I'm going to talk about at the end, that special trees are reality anchors. Okay, I guess if I've introduced it, I'll go ahead and talk about it now. So, Reality anchors are a concept in the paranormal that if there are separate realities, then there are a few things that are sort of like rivets or screws through those separate realities that anchor them all together. So like for the sake of this story, let's say there's two Virginias. There's the one Virginia who wanted to put her star on the tree, and there's the other Virginia who wanted to put her teddy bear on the tree. And then both of them touch the top, they end up in the limbo stage for a while, and then go to the opposite timeline. Those trees that they touch are the only true connection between the different timelines. So even though it was two different Virginias, they both touch the same tree, if that makes sense. Or the trees that are mirrored are the only true things in the universe and everything else happens around them. I'm getting into weird conspiracy stuff. I'm just going to move on for now. In the Suez Crab Canal, which I've got to say is probably the most bizarre episode just in everything that happens in it and how large scale it is, we see again that radiation is used to wake up the creature. It's very similar to the Alcatraz one. Also, Dr. Disturbing covers it, which I'm going to say Dr. D is the Satan's son. Again, could be Lauren or Lauren and her brother, but it's a lot more convenient for me to say Lauren and Dr. D. Yeah, Melrose was there to say that everyone was this giant clump of people all pushed together. I also want to mention, so season 1, on the playlist on YouTube, it says that the national anthem or national song of America is My Country 'Tis of Thee. And then for season 2, it says E Pluribus Unum. Latin for out of many one is the official motto of the United States. So while on the surface level, this may seem like, oh, well, it's just a historic fact, because that is the motto of the United States, out of many one. But whenever we say it, we're referring to the fact of, oh, well, we're all different states, but we make up one country. Here, I get more of the vibe we're all a massive flesh conglomerate leading to one, like, dystopian hellscape. But whenever Melrose said all of the people were formed into one flesh mound or mass grave, it reminded me of that tagline for season 2. Just a thought. Also, I have in my notes here for Suez Crab, it just says, ha ha, American stupid. And I guess it was very late when I wrote this. I guess I was referring to the fact that all the Americans showed up and then killed each other over barbecue grills and cars, so make of that what you will. Dean Disaster is just further proof for me that James Dean is an evil person. Like, he says the sirens were all hijacked, but then he can use them just fine the next day. He immediately uses the opportunity to throw people who are against him to all of these monuments to feed them, and assuming that he's making people cross over or touch the trees because their family say they looked a little bit different and had a different personality, then that whole tragic thing that happened to Virginia, Dean's just taking people by the hundreds of thousands and just throwing them to the tree portal just over and over. Also, all of this, the hearing disaster, all of that, all occurred in 1969, in the first year of his presidency. So only a few months into office, he's able to start feeding trees and make Maze a super empire with the Department of Technology. I feel like he's moving pretty fast. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead, and I'm loopy enough to be ridiculous. I'm going to go ahead and agree with the people who say that he is the devil. Like, it was a joke at the beginning, like, oh, they think Lucifer is James Dean. I don't know if Lucifer is real in this world, but whatever equivalent of him exists is James Dean. So, you know what, I am a firm member of the ADA, the Anti-Dean Association. He is the devil. I'm glad that they shut down the power lines. I'm glad that they shot Freedom off the Capitol, because I hate that statue, and I hope that it dies. And I'm terrified of it. I'm literally terrified of it. And where was I going with this? Oh yeah, don't like Dean. I agree with people who were trying to kill him and all that. That we are not, as the spokesperson for the ADA, we are not responsible for the siren attack. That was a false flag incident that was taken against us. And yeah, Dean, don't like him in this universe. Real James Dean, probably a swell guy. Real sad that he died in that car crash. But I hate President Dean. Yeah. Also, to excuse everything I just said, it is currently 1 in the morning and I'm moving on. Also, during the image where it's showing him before he gives his entire talk that starts the Department of Technology, why is there a faceless man standing behind him? What? That doesn't connect to anything. I hate it. He's the devil, and the guy behind him is Judas? In Giza Guardian, we can see that the lights that are forming together to make the starry sphinx immediately precede a lightning flash. I think that it is this lightning flash that creates Giza Glass. Remember how they said it was a constellation that told people that there was going to be Giza Glass in a certain location? Well, I don't think it was a constellation as in like, oh, you have to watch where Scorpio goes this time of year. I think it was the giant floating stars on the ground in the shape of a lion, which that would justify why Giza Glass is such an important object. If I'm right about this lightning and this energy and whatever being bridges between different dimensions or a way to teleport through different dimensions and all of that, then it striking the sand and creating glass is essentially making an essence of the indiscernible. In other words, the glass itself kind of works as this anti-spatial material, because Wonderland itself is like a limbo between spaces. So if the lightning is a way to get to Wonderland, then the glass that the lightning makes is a sort of material made out of limbo. Watch the next episode of the series just debunk everything I'm saying and be like, oh, well no, it's because Giza Glass is made out of uranium or something stupid. But that's the reason that whenever Thomas cut off his hand with Giza Glass, he could still feel and move his hand. As a matter of fact, he even told Louisa that it didn't hurt at all having his hand cut off, because it's not a cut in the way we think of it. It's like limbo separating the place of your hand in the universe from the place of your arm. So it's still connected, it's just not in the same spatial area. Which explains why it's so expensive and explains when people get their head cut off by it, their head does weird, like floaty meatball stuff. This video was also made by Dr. Disturbing again, showing us that not only is it common enough knowledge that he can find information on it and report it, but if you look at this as Nathaniel's son doing it, his son is trying to learn everything he can about what happened to his father and his aunt. Also, everything that was said about the Giza Glass implies that Thomas was in control of all of his organs and still completely alive when he put himself, and by proximity Nina, into freedom, which I guess means that they're still alive, just in pieces. That being said, in the next one, Rockefeller Revelation, whenever it's talking about the crowns, it says that Rockefeller was really afraid people would figure out about what was in the airships, and I don't know if that means they would see the crowns and know that Rockefeller sold them to Germany, or if that means he didn't want them to know about the existence of crowns. Either way, something was being hidden from the government, but now in the present age, people are just like, oh yeah, the whole Guardian program where they cut off people's heads and made them into the big floating head things, yeah, that shut down in 1969. Also, in Starry Sphinx, whenever we see like the green orbs come down and form around the Sphinx, I'm going to go ahead and say that those orbs look very, very similar to the disintegrated particles of the soldiers who were killed by the Death Ray, or the soldiers that eventually made up what I'm calling the Avogadro. In other words, I don't think it's a constellation, as the ancients said, or as it was believed in the 1870s, that causes Giza Glass to form. I think instead what happens is that groups of people are affected by whatever's inside of the lamp of the Death Ray, and whenever they're affected by it, they become these like orb particles, and then they float around, and whenever they combine or form a shape, it causes energy blast, and that blast is the lightning that forms Giza Glass. Again, which explains why the glass itself is so powerful. Also, the glowing orbs themselves are referred to as false children, and the false children to me is very reminiscent of the doppelgangers that got switched from one universe to the other, or from the Nixonverse to the Doomverse. And I think that whenever these flashes occur, it's them transferring either to Wonderland or to the next one over. So maybe whenever someone crosses over from one realm to the other, that causes visual phenomena that we can see. Remember during that news broadcast where it's showing the Starry Sphinx walk around, and there was that one part where there was the ladders that just kept building off of each other? I cannot shake it that to me, that looks exactly like the 10 children that Virginia climbed up to get to the top of the tree, especially because that was immediately followed by an energy flash. Now, I could be way off, I'm really into headcanon territory now, and I could absolutely be wrong. However, what I think may possibly have happened there is the children who, at Rockefeller Plaza, were getting really, really close to bridging over into